So up to this point, we've talked about boat setup. You know how to keep yourself safe, how to get yourself in shape to ride. Let's start talking about riding. So in my opinion, we ride the world's greatest surfboards, right? And what I try to do when I'm surfing with the stand-up is just emulate what I would do when I'm surfing. So for me, surfing with the stand-up is basically dream surfing. I've got enough power to make it around any section. I can catch a ton of waves, and I can do everything on this boat that I can do on a surfboard. So you're almost fired right now. Off the set. Let's go talk to the legend himself, Randy Lane, and he's going to tell you how to surf on a stand-up.
To me, surf riding is a lifestyle. It's about freedom and expression. It's like being an artist. You know, to me, I see a wave as a canvas that you can paint on and you can ride, and you get the adrenaline rush because of the fear and the danger, but you get the speed. You know, you get the adrenaline rush from the speed and the amplitude of all the different maneuvers. Free riding on a stand-up jet ski, it actually was the first thing I ever did in my life that was more fun than surfing. I grew up surfing my whole life, and free riding is way more exciting. I can catch 100 waves in an hour. For me personally, I like and appreciate and respect guys that ride the jet ski like a surfboard. In other words, they go out and they ride a big wave in a critical area, and they carve, and they actually use power in their maneuvers. And ride the wave just like a surfer, only with the speed and the explosiveness that you can get from a mechanical motor. Carving bottom turns, I try to do it smooth so it's a continuous S-turn move and not a choppy, jerky. I mean, it's fun to do the big slashes where you blow the top off, but I like to carve kind of what I call point break style, and what that is where you're doing S-turns up and down the wave, and you're carving the wave just like a surfer. And to me, the most fun is being put in the most critical part of the wave on a large wave, on a real steep section, and being able to make these maneuvers continuously without a mistake. And I like to do what's called backdooring the barrel. I like to start out behind the barrel because I want to look at the wave starting to pitch out, and I like to position myself down low and use the throttle to get into the barrel. I used to back into them. I used to get on the wave and just slow down and let it go over me, but now I like to backdoor, come from behind the barrel and just sit down low. But you've got to be real careful when the ski is flat because you've got sharp edges. And a lot of times when a wave is hollow, it sucks out so fast that you can't straighten out in time. The lift goes over and blows you up. It's just finding the peak of the wave and dropping down low and just kind of pitting yourself. Well, I think preparation, mechanical preparation, you know, riding waves is like hot sauce. You got to start out with a little bit and work your way up. You don't start with a bottle of hot sauce. You have a few drops, and that's the same with surf riding. You start in small waves, work to medium, then large, and then you can go tsunami. I think preparation, having yourself physically fit, sober, and having your boat set up where you've got bilge pumps at work, you've got clean spark plugs, a toolkit, a tow rope, you know, all the necessities, because you're gonna sink.
So there you have it from the godfather of freeride, Randy Lane. Now let's see what Chris Rosner has to say.
Let's just say when I tell people I'm part of the Blow Vision team, they ask me what porn site and how to get to the porn site, because that's what Blow Vision sounds like. The biggest thing when you're doing a slash is you want to start on a wave that's not breaking and just work your way up. If you try to do it on a wave that's breaking, a lot of times you're going to purl and usually hit the bottom and break motor mounts or break something else on your ski, the nose of your ski. You really want to come at it with your body weight neutral on the ski with a little bit of speed, and you're going to loosen up your back foot as you start to make your slash to make the back end slide around, and then you want to push the weight back onto your foot as you're sliding to really engage the pump and get a good slash out of it.
So now we've learned a little bit about how to surf with your stand-up. Now, I'm gonna go get in the air a little bit. So now we're ready to start doing some jumps. And a good way to start doing tricks, obviously you've done a few straight jumps, you're ready to change it up a little bit. A good beginner trick is a 180 nose stab. And we're going to talk about a little technique here, and then we're going to go to Chris, and he's going to show you how it's done on the water. Basically, for doing a 180, you're going to want to get a foot in the foothold. I run a foot strap in the front. It's best to do this trick 1 foot forward. It's really a matter of feel to figure out how to do these correctly, and you're going to do a few and you're going to crash, and then you're going to do a few more and you're going to land them and you're going to love it. So we're headed up the face of the wave, we turn the bars, we give her some gas. As the nose of the boat begins to go over the top of the wave, we're going to start to push down, and as we push, we throw our hips, we throw our body, and we spot our land. And then we're going to land on the power, and right away it's going to be clean. The girls are going to go nuts.
The first thing with the nose stab is you really got to find a wave that's steep enough and it has enough power to really give you that upward momentum. And you want to come at the wave with your body weight low and kind of towards the front of your ski and on the handle pole. When you come off the wave, you really want to use the lip of the wave and use your hips to get that real high up and spin the back end around on that pivot and just come back down. You really want to come in not fully straight in, but you want to come in with a good angle so you're not landing flat and hurting your ankles. I'm not Darren Anderson. I can't pull away from that kind of stuff. In the beginning, if you're really first starting trying out, I would really try it off a really small wave. Make sure it's not too shallow because a lot of times you will hit the bottom. But you really want to start on a small wave and work your way up, and you really want a steep wave to get that full upward momentum and to complete your spin.
Next, after you've done a few stabs, another good surf trick to get started on is the re-entry. Now this trick in theory is something that's relatively easy to do. It is somewhat similar to a nose stab, but in practice it's one that, well, it takes a long time to get it perfected. I can't think of anybody better to explain a re-entry to you than Air Darren Anderson.
You know, the re-entry is just, that's something that I've loved to do and started learning ever since I really started riding with Joe Kenny back in the day. And it's, you know, it's just such a cool looking move. You see the travel, the crowd can see the travel from the beach, whitewash crashing below you, and you're sitting there up in the air, tweaking something out. All the components just come together to make it look such a cool trick. And going back to air, everything looks better when it's bigger. So, you know, you hit it, if you think about that foam as the whitewash you're landing in, it's a little softer. So as long as you can get right in the right spot and on your landing, and it's pretty decent of a landing. So you just, again, you clamp on the throttle and hit it hard, and it's a pretty decent landing. And then there's, you know, holding on for the super ride through the mosh pit of the whitewash.
Well, Darren, thanks for those re-entries. You might want to go put some ice on that. One of the very basic moves for free riding is the barrel roll. And the barrel roll is, man, I would almost make it, whatever, dude. Sorry, our guys get a phone call.
Fail, director, fail.
I was just getting my groove on. Next, we come to one of the very basic, no, it's not basic at all. It's hard and it hurts. Barrel rolls. There are all kinds of variations and varieties, and no one rolls really the same way. I actually roll several different ways, but there are two very basic ways we'll talk about doing barrel rolls, and that's with 2 feet in the back in the footholds, which I would say is the easiest way to roll and probably the best way to get started. And then we'll look at surf stance rolls. I would suggest that beginners learn to roll with both feet in the back in the footholds. And the reason is you have more leverage than you do with 1 foot forward surf stance. And in the beginning, we're not going to be going very big. We just want to get the movement down. We want to figure out the rotation. We want to get comfortable being upside down. we start out with both feet in the back, locked into our footholds. We want to keep our knees bent. Obviously head up. We're looking around, we're looking for the right wave. When we find the wave, when we approach the wave, there are two schools of thought. Some guys like to do an S turn, so that if you're approaching the wave, to roll to the left, you crank the bars to the right a little bit. That'll turn the ski to the right ever so slightly, but that then allows you to hold the bars to the left for a longer period of time going up the face of the wave to initiate the roll. Now that's a technique a lot of guys use. I will use it sometimes, but I think it's probably easier for a first-time guy to hit the wave straight on. Don't worry about an S turn. Worry more about your timing and hitting the wave at the right point and carrying enough speed. So here we go. We're locked into the footholds. We found our wave. We're headed for it. We're headed up the face of the wave. We're going to turn our bars. We're going to give it some throttle. And then what we're going to do, since we have our feet both locked into the back of the footholds, we're going to throw our weight forward. And in this case, we're rolling to the left. We're going to throw our weight forward and over the left side of the boat. Typically, rule of thumb is your body's going to follow where your head goes. And so what I want you to do is try to look for the sky, but under the bottom of the boat. So we're going to leave the lip of the wave. Bars are fully cranked. We're leaning over. We're pulling with this outside leg. We're looking for the sky. The first few times you do this, it's not going to be fun. You're going to be black and blue. You're going to crash. If your boat's not reinforced, you're going to break parts. But if you get past that, you start to get the rotation figured out. What's going to happen, you're going to look for the sky. Pretty quickly, once you see the sky, you're going to see the water and you're going to spot your landing. After you get comfortable with the rotation and you know what the boat's going to do, I like to look forward and try to keep my eye most of the time on where I'm going to go and look for my landing. For me personally, I like to do small barrel rolls in the footholds because I get a lot of leverage. I can pull the boat around really quickly. But whenever I go bigger, or with a lot of my variations, I like to have one foot forward in what we call surf stance. Now the only real difference in doing it surf stance is because if we're rolling to the left, we don't have an outside leg to really pull on, we have less leverage. We have to rely more on initiating the roll with our bars and our steering. So for a surf stance roll, same basic thing, straight at the wave, crank the bars. I did just grab my balls right there in case you didn't notice, but for surf stance roll, head straight at the wave, crank the bars, throw our body weight, and with this, kind of hip into it a little bit, and it's fun. Once you get the rotation kind of dialed, you can start to tweak your body around different sides of the ski and sort of have fun with it. Again, you just need to understand that it's going to rotate slower than a foothold roll, and weight transfer is going to be just a touch different. You already have a little more weight forward. So once you get comfortable doing regular barrel rolls, it's time to start adding a little bit of variation into it. One thing to keep in mind with variations is they're going to slow you down. You're going to want to compensate for the variations by going a little bit bigger, getting a little more air time, initiating the rotation a little bit harder, and then make sure you're comfortable with controlling your rotation in the air. It seems like you can always just kind of dig down deep and pull. Even when you're in the air, you can get a little leverage over the outside of the boat to rotate and bring it around. Also, keeping yourself very compact will speed up the rotation. As far as slowing it down, the best thing to do is just to extend, and you'll find yourself doing that naturally as you kind of progress with the barrel roll. And you do that naturally because before you hit the water, obviously you want to extend to be able to absorb the impact, but also you'll spot your landing, and as you feel the boat rotating around, you can control that extension to time it so that you land the roll cleanly on the plate and keep riding. Regular roll is boring. boring after a while. It's time to add a little variation. And now to get a little instruction on variation, we're gonna go to Mark Gomez, Tiago Gaitens, and Jerry Jones.
One-handed roll, it's not really a hard trick. It's just to get a little style into it. You can play around with how you hit the wave and hit it later, or you can hit it early and just go sailing. But for the most part, if you hit it later, you can go higher and it'll look more stylish when you just extend your body, slow down the rotation, and then bring your body back, or bring your hands back to your bars, and that'll snap the ski around like any other roll. For this roll, you have both feet in the footholds just because you could probably do it in surf stance, but as far as really just standing straight up and getting that arch and getting that full just extension, I find it a lot more stylish in the footholds for that roll. I usually do, if I go off a really big wave and I'm for some reason in my footholds, rolling to the left, I will do a one-handed roll, mainly because it slows down the rotation of a roll, because you could stand straight up, but if you throw your hand out, it really emphasizes it, and you can really, almost, try and grab the water in a sense and spot your landing and bring it back in last second so you don't over-rotate your roll if you're going big.
I don't have snot coming out of my nose? No. All right. Yeah. I was thinking about cutting out some nipple holes. I think a pretty important part of progressing into the barrel roll variations at all is to spend a lot of time just doing tons of barrel rolls. Like anything, you need to feel comfortable with your rotation. You need to be able to handle the various situations that you might have as you come off the lip of a wave. Sometimes rotations are thrown off by some bumps. Sometimes they're thrown off because it peaked different than you expected it to. And once you start to feel like you can kind of look around and you always know about how far you are from the water, then it's time to start doing some variations. The look back and point, I think a pretty key element of it is to find a nice steep wave. At least it's my preference. When you get a nice steep wave, you get some really good pop off the top, and as the ski starts to rotate around, you kind of have this freedom to move without any forces acting against you. There's nothing wanting to pull the ski away from you, and at that point you get to kind of start moving around and pointing and letting go. To start, I like to come up to a good steep wave, and right as I'm coming up the face, start to initiate that turn around. Really, before ever leaving the lip, I'm almost all the way turned back to the beach, and by that point, you're just doing a regular turn of the bars. Your body's almost all the way around, and just let go with a hand. Generally your left hand, could be a right, and you just kind of follow the same motion that you started. As you turn your body around towards the beach, you just follow through with that. Kind of extend your legs, reach on out. At that point, the roll likes to slow down pretty significantly. Most of the rotation is going to kind of start to stop. You can hang it out there generally until about the apex of the jump, in which case you kind of want to start to tuck back in. And from there, as you turn back around to the bars and kind of tuck back into the roll, it speeds it right back up. And you kind of finish the last part of the roll with more speed than you had, midway. I don't think there's any need to approach a look back roll all that different than a regular roll, other than the fact that you want to make sure the wave is pretty steep. It's not necessary, but a steeper wave is going to allow you to kind of tweak the ski out around you as you turn around. On a wave that's not peaking too much, you can still do the point back, but it has a tendency to throw the rotation of the ski off a little bit more. It's something that's absolutely possible, but I feel like when first starting to do them, it's easier to find a good steep wave to roll off of. From the one hand look back, you you obviously can move into the two-hand, or the no-hand look back, I should say. The Jerry curl, as we, I think, have named it now. It is definitely not as gay as a Fruit Loop. You can't put that in the movie. The Jerry curl is basically a no-handed barrel roll while facing the beach. So it's similar to the point back barrel roll, but you don't have any hands on the ski. It's a natural progression from kind of the point back. Really, the only difference is just letting go with the other hand. But there are a few things that you kind of need to step into to start feeling comfortable with letting go completely. I think the one key difference is that on the no hand look back, on the Jerry curl, you need to put your hips a little closer to the bars. So as you start your rotation, just like you do with a point back barrel roll, you're going to start turning early. In this case, you want to put your hips into the bars a little bit more. And by putting your hips in the bars, you're keeping your mass near the center of the rotation of the ski, and you're also keeping a reference for where you are in regards to the handle pull, the bars, and that helps to really come back and be able to grab back on when you need to. Much like the point back, as you turn around, the rotation slows significantly, and in fact more so than the point back. But in the same regard, all you have to do is tuck back in and the roll comes right back around. I think the key thing on the Jerry curl